Testing, testing. I think we got it. Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the So That Happened podcast. I'm Cody. I do things alternate history related. Who are you people, and what fantastic show do we have today? Yay.
I'm Emperor Tiger Star, and I'm all about maps.
And I'm Tristan, and apparently it's starting to catch on in the So That Happened community that I'm from the actual history of.
You're the actual history hub. Well, now Knowledge Hub is going down its own special path, so you can be the actual history hub if you want. Anyway, today we have something unique. We have an actual structure to the podcast. I think the way that we're going to start doing it is we're just going to have alternate history scenario that we decide to talk about. Maybe it might be something that me and Tiger Star have just casually talked about. It's a failed video that we never did, like today, and we're gonna just talk about it and chat about it.
Or if it goes real well, a potential video.
This is this new one that we're having. I guarantee is not going to be a potential video. I've tried to do it 5 times and has always failed.
But what if California was an island?
I mean, to be fair, he did do that video.
That's the joke. I hate you so much.
What if California was an island and the Ethiopian Empire was built on top of it?
The Californian,
that's a video.
The Ethiopia-California Empire. I like it.
Yeah.
The Califopian Empire.
Land of the Rising Lion. Anyway,
actually, that sounds pretty badass. Actually, Land of the Rising Lion.
Somebody make that a thing in fiction. Also, actually, okay, so we have then the second part is going to be Q&As. So if you want us to answer a question of yours, you can either use the official Twitter thread that I have tweeted out, or you can type to us in the super chat down below, and we will definitely get to your answer if you use the super chat. So
until we call timeout at the end.
Until we call timeout, and then you gotta stop. You gotta just stop.
We gotta sleep, yo.
Yeah, we do. We don't have that much time. But anyway, yeah, let's get into it. So, this is actually an idea that me and Tiger Star have been talking about for 2-3 months. It was one of the ones that we were like, okay, we're definitely gonna do this. This is something like, this is gonna be next week. It's gonna be great. And every single time I keep trying to write it, it just falls flat, and we can't and I at least can't figure out how to get it past a certain thing. So the video was just never made. I even did the failed video idea video that was like 20-30 minutes long, and that didn't even reach that because
I was wondering
because I couldn't figure out how to write it for that. So what was this mysterious topic? So there's actually 2 topics. What we're gonna theorize is what if the continent of Antarctica never was actually covered in ice? How would that affect the world, and how would that change colonization, and what would the potential of this land be? And then the other is, what if Terra Australis existed, and what Terra Australis is and what that is? We'll get into that later. But these are the 2 scenarios that we have basically been trying to theorize forever, and why not? Let's just talk about it now. So, which one do you guys want to sort of dive into?
Well, the ice one I thought about a little bit because there's ramifications to that kind of change, and one is Japan. As an example, Japan had a lot of its history where it had a series of It's an archipelago with not much resources, and a lot of fighting happened because of it, and had its own history. But imagine that over the entire planet, because without ice on Antarctica, the sea level would be about 70 meters higher than it is today, which means that there would be very, very little arable land on Earth.
Yeah, that's actually the reason why we never actually did the video was, yeah, it's cool to imagine, like, Britain and France and Germany competing over an alternate Antarctica. But also, if this was a realistic thing that we're actually talking, like, being feasible, then most likely Britain and France and Germany don't exist at all.
Because water.
I think like every single idea that like we've talked about that you ultimately like never done, I think all three of those times it was because of like the whole science aspect of geography that we just couldn't ignore.
Yeah, well, the issue is that this was like the biggest writer's block for me, because it was okay in this world where there is no ice on Antarctica, the sea level would be significantly higher, like Tristan said. Okay, so let's not change it too much.
Like,
Let's say,
keep in mind, like 6 meters is like the most amount that's predicted with like
Yeah.
the runaway climate change, and we're talking 70 meters.
yeah, and so then I was thinking, okay, well, let's do this in a less scientific aspect. Um, let's say that the sea level is the exact same, but then the ice just never was there in the first place. Then there's another issue.
It's still cold.
Well, not just that. Actually, the ice that's on top of Antarctica, basically the thing is that if it completely disappeared, it would be a series of islands. But the thing is that if that ice never, like, if that ice was never there in the first place, the whole continent itself would rise up. It would have never sunk into the ocean, because apparently there's this thing when there's so much ice on a continent, it can actually lower the land. So Antarctica, there's even that thing. There's that CGP Grey video where he was saying like Antarctica actually isn't a continent; it's actually a series of islands. No, that's actually kind of bullshit. Antarctica is actually a continent. The thing is that because it's covered in glaciers, the entire continent has been pushed below our today's sea level. So it seems like it's a bunch of islands. Well, the thing is that if you got rid of all that ice today, in a few million years, the continent itself would actually rise slowly back up. Well, in this alternate timeline, if we didn't keep into account the sea level... Oh my god. If we didn't keep into account the sea level rising when the ice melted, the continent itself would actually be like the continent would be 70 meters above our sea level. So when people would try to explore the continent, it would just be these giant cliffs that nobody could get onto. And that was the whole predicament, that it's either the entire world is flooded or Antarctica is just this continent that never sunk into the ocean, and it's these giant scaling cliffs that nobody
Well,
can
let's
actually
play with that a bit. How does that work? How does it turn into a bunch of scaling cliffs?
Because you gotta think that the continent in present day sunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the continent in the present, like, Tiger Sir, we discussed this, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this. Okay, so the continent today is covered in ice, and so it's like, say it's at base 0.
Yeah, I get that part, but what about like erosion? Like, isn't that the reason all continents aren't just giant cliffs?
Well, it's not a... What are you talking about, erosion? How is erosion playing into this?
Like, wouldn't erosion sort of erode away the cliffs as they got closer to the ocean?
Maybe by a little bit, but not much, especially since they're above water as
We're
opposed
talking about
to on the water.
We're talking about the actual continent itself and our current ocean level. So basically, the actual continent, because there was so much ice on it for millions of years, is sunk. So if there was no ice on it in the first place, and for some reason, unscientifically, because it's impossible that if there was that the sea level would stay the same. That just means that you would have a lower ocean. I wonder if I'm explaining this right.
I'm just thinking, like, why does that happen to Antarctica but not other continents?
Because it's unscientific that if the ice never existed, that there would just be no sort of that wouldn't affect the sea level at all. I'm imagining.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a certain amount of water on Earth.
So then what about like, because we have like Antarctica wasn't always below the South Pole, so it existed before.
Yeah, Antarctica was, but the thing was is that the sea level was equal to the amount of water that was to the sea level was higher because of that. I'm saying that when the glaciers froze Antarctica over, the sea level dropped because of that. So if we're imagining a world where the sea level didn't drop, where for some reason, this is a world where for some reason the sea level is the exact same as in our timeline.
Okay, I'm starting to get you, because when Antarctica existed, like dinosaur times,
the
ocean levels were higher.
Yes.
All right, I'm getting it now.
Thank you for helping me out, Tiger Star, for no reason. Great. I was trying to freaking struggle that.
Well, anyway. Sorry, I didn't know what that.
But yeah, that's but yeah, anyway, that was the issue, was that it's so completely unscientific. I'm trying to think. Anyway, yeah. So
if aliens just scooped up all of the ice and ran away at some time, like after the dinosaurs died, then it would just start kind of jutting up out of the sea.
See, all of you in the audience are starting to realize why this never became a video.
Yeah, it's because it's like you have
the way you approach this, it's like, do you approach it scientifically? Go, okay, well, in this scenario, the sea levels are higher, but that rewrites all of history, which makes this video way too hard to do. Or do we just go, forget science, but then that makes it unrealistic, but it's alternate history, so it's already unrealistic, but, you know.
So no matter what, it's going to be unrealistic. Because
this is like the alternate history equivalent of dividing by zero.
It is.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, then let's play with it a bit and imagine the continent that has like the cliffs, and say something like around the lines of like, if the cliffs exist, then we really wouldn't be able to settle it until like we've invented airplanes or something.
I mean, I'm thinking.
Well, some people might try to scale the cliffs. People have been known to try stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm thinking that if this was a continent that was, 70 meters high, higher than sea level, the entire landmass, I'm trying to think that would wouldn't that almost make it desert? That wouldn't really even make it habitable in itself, because that would make it significantly colder as well.
Any species that would be on there would be trapped.
It's already over the South Pole, and there'd be no no precipitation, and the air would be rather thin. So it would be like mosses and like a few like super shitty animals that it'd be like mosses and like the bird that eats mosses, and then people would go up there and be like, it'd be like the kind of ways that we treat the northern reaches of Canada, which is like there are people there because. I think there is estimates that there's a decent amount of like mineral wealth in Antarctica and stuff. Like, let's just imagine there's like tons of gold or something. Yeah. Then people would go up there, but they would be these like sporadic mining communities that would pay people a lot of money to go down there and mine. But then they'd be all temporary workers and they'd go home because it sucks up there.
This is pretty much like, what if Antarctica was a little bit more habitable, but only by like a percentage? Like, get rid of the horrible tundra weather and replace it with just a different type of tundra. Oh, boy.
I mean, there is kind of a place that would be like Antarctica, except this place is way smaller. The Svalbard, which is owned by Norway, it's like this archipelago of islands north of Norway, and it kind of looks like that. It has that Antarctic climate, but with much less ice, and most of the coastline is kind of like cliffs and mountains, and there are people there, just not a lot.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, and also the Northwest Territories in Canada, which is like probably warmer than what Antarctica would be, because it would still be over the South Pole, so it would still get to like -100 Celsius in the wintertime, but we do have like sporadic communities up there, but they don't have highways. They have like an airport that has like one plane come in and out a month, and they just exist to mine gold and diamonds for De Beers.
So we're talking
Shipping
about
of supplies once or twice a year.
So we're talking about, in this scenario, Antarctica is a continent where, because the water didn't equate with the frozen glaciers, which is extremely unscientific, we have a landmass that is 70 meters above the ocean that everybody goes to because it's a percentage less habitable, and it still isn't really that like feasible because it's still immensely cold and it's on the South Pole.
There would
Just
only be
just
like mining
for-
companies.
Yeah, and that's only if there was shit up there. Otherwise, there probably wouldn't even be.
Maybe we put a few missile bases there. Maybe.
I want to imagine, because I think the other idea is more interesting. The one where we do equate ocean sea levels with this. Because while that makes a boring video, I mean, it could make a pretty easy conversation. So this is something that we've talked about immensely. So this is a world where basically Antarctica is warm. It's as warm as it was during the dinosaurs. So you have, or at least it's like northern Canada. You know, it's a little unscientific, but all there means is like the glaciers are gone. They were never there in the first place, and at least has a temperature that is habitable for humans. So the rest of the world is incredibly affected.
Waterworld.
I wouldn't say it's Waterworld because I've seen it with 70 meters. Europe's still there.
Yeah, I sent you a map.
You sent me a map?
Yeah.
Isn't the Earth, though, there's no like really big landmasses, a lot of archipelagos.
Okay,
well, no, the landmass is still there. I sent Cody a map on what the world would look like if sea levels were higher by 70 meters.
I'm actually going to put it up on the screen. 70. I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Yeah, I'd like to see this too.
Okay, so, beep boop bop. There it is.
Because I haven't seen, like, because most people who make maps like this are doing it for climate change reasons, and the highest that they go is like 6 meters.
Yeah, I know. I had to do some thinking to find the website.
Now that we actually have the map, I think it'll be pretty. Okay, so Italy is basically an island. So we gotta think. We're gonna go beginning.
You
of
linked
history.
it?
We're gonna go beginning of history. This is gonna be fun. I wanna think about this. Okay, so if the world was just always with the 70 meters, I'm thinking Egypt itself wouldn't even exist because their entire fertile region is completely destroyed. I'm looking at,
or maybe it just expands further.
Well, no, because I'm thinking of Egypt's entire thing depends on the river valley, and it looks like the river valley is.
If the Nile River's still there, which it would be, in the levels higher, that just means the river would be bigger.
Could I see this map?
It should be on the YouTube stream thing. On screen.
On screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Florida's gone.
What about Iraq? What about Babylonia and Mesopotamia?
Nope.
Just doesn't exist.
Mesopotamian civilization is gone, and that will immediately alter history forever.
Surprisingly, the Holy Land still exists, which is weird.
Yeah, but at this point, like, all of human history is completely unrecognizable. Like, we don't have.
I mean, we're not
looking at this like
we're not even putting into account the climate changes that would occur because of this. I mean, we're not climatologists, so I mean, if you put any amount of water in an area, it's going to affect the water in some way. I mean, think about the Great Lakes. Think about the Great Lakes effect. I mean, just by having those tiny lakes, you create this snowfall effect. Think about.
Oh, I can kill it even more than that.
Well, I'm thinking. I'm saying. Imagine if the Black Sea was the size that it is in this picture, and the Caspian Sea is literally a giant. Like, that is the largest. I don't know if that's a lake or a sea, because isn't the Caspian?
It's a lake.
A lake, yeah. So this would be like the largest freshwater lake in the world, and man.
I mean, it's already the largest freshwater lake in the world.
Oh,
all right,
China doesn't even exist.
Gone.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I
See,
do.
see, that's what's so interesting because so many civilizations are around the river. Granted, this doesn't zoom in as far, but Mesopotamia is gone. The Indus Valley is gone. The area where the Chinese civilization popped up is gone. Egypt is still there. I mean, the Nile River might be thicker, but Egypt might be the only one out of the original ones that are still there. I think I see Crete, so maybe the Minoans might barely be there, but I mean, most of those beginner civilizations will be gone. The Yucatan is gone, so there's no Maya.
Greece
Uh,
surprisingly actually fared pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah.
I will have to say there's one thing. This is like the big thing that I noticed, and that is this would be a much wetter climate than the one we're in right now, which means that like a lot of the dryness wouldn't have happened. And here's the thing: there was a system of ice ages and dry periods and wet periods that caused a certain primate to have to adapt from trees to grasslands and learn how to walk on 2 feet. And that would probably not have happened.
So that's reason number 542 on why this video never happened.
So
Yeah,
sorry.
it's an alternate history if there's no humans.
I mean, yes, technically.
Oh, so no, I mean, okay, so we could still have the British Empire, maybe
Just without humans. It'd be run by a bunch of chimpanzees.
Yeah, it'd be chimpanzees, and they wouldn't
It'd be Planet of the Apes. This is how Planet of the Apes happens.
And they wouldn't have the British Isles. They would have the British like archipelago. Somehow it still exists, and it still is able to create a seafaring.
Or maybe instead of primates evolving, maybe a different species will evolve and go upright and take over the planet.
It does look like, though, that Wales is mostly just like a little island.
It looks like most of it is like a Philippine-style archipelago. Ireland is like 3 islands.
America has been drastically improved. Both Louisiana and Florida are both basically gone.
And most of Mississippi.
California has a big hole in it.
Shit, that's a good America.
California has a big hole in it. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Poor Silicon Valley.
Oh God, poor Cuba.
Wow, I didn't.
It's gone.
So like the entire Caribbean.
Yeah. Well, Puerto Rico's still there. I don't get how. Puerto Rico's still there.
They still don't have power though.
Oh, poor guys.
The Maldives. What are those? Those are gone.
Bangladesh is just wiped off the map. I'm surprised how Africa is still pretty much the same.
Yeah, they have quite a high plateau in the southern half of the continent. So,
another thing that's interesting is that Myanmar and Bangladesh are like almost entirely underwater, which means that there's really not a land path between India and like kind of like Thailand and Cambodia and like that region, which means that if in a weird situation where there were humans, there'd be very little cultural transference of like Hindu Indian stuff over to like Tibet and stuff. So like Buddhism probably wouldn't have made it into Asia or into East Asia as much. And,
well, maybe because it still went to China. So if it traveled to Tibet and then to China, then that went to Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
I mean, keeping into account if humans even evolve in the first place.
If humans even evolve, which they won't.
No one in history would be born.
Yep, and this is why we never did this video at all. Oh, you know what we could move on to? Terra Australis.
Oh, yes.
I think we got that. Okay. So, Tiger Stir, do you got the map for that?
I don't think I do.
Okay, can you look it up while I explain it? Okay, cool. So, what is Terra Australis? So there was this concept, back during the Age of Exploration that, because Europe and Asia were in the northern hemisphere, the world had to be balanced. So everybody always theorized that there was another continent, exactly opposite of their own in the south, and it kept the world in balance. It wasn't an idea that was like super popular, but it persisted among sailors and cartographers a little bit, and it was called Terra Australis, which I think, what did it mean, like the Southland or something like that, basically, like Southern land.
Kinda.
It was something along those lines.
Yeah, it's Southland.
Yeah. So it when they discovered Australia, that's where the name Australia came from, was because they thought that there was no continent more south than this. And it turns out they just needed to wait 200 more years, and then they actually would have found granted a far more smaller Terra Australis. It doesn't take up the entire southern hemisphere, but it was the most southern. But that's where Australia got the name. But anyway, Terra Australis was a continent that took up the entire southern hemisphere. It was one that you could, if it was real, you could walk from the southern tip of South America.
Okay, I found it.
Okay.
Eurasia South, basically.
Okay, I sent you one that shows like the normal world map view, like that classic old map, and then the last one I sent you is a map I made that shows what it would look like if it was like from the South Pole point of view.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, so basically this was I'm going to pull this up. One sec. Beep boop up. Alright, so this was a continent that they believed that you could go from the southern tip of South America and walk all the way to Australia, because Australia wasn't its own independent continent. It was at least thought of as the southern tip, or the northern tip of this great continent. And of course, this was an idea that really only persisted for like 200 years. But I'm trying to pull up.
Oh my!
Yeah. They they overestimated its power.
Yeah, it also looks like South America's put on weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of old maps did that.
Canada
if they hadn't
too.
explored the area, they just assumed that there was just nothing but unlimited land in that direction.
Canada too.
Just shows how they saw. Yeah, Canada kind of turned out to be true though.
I think that's. Oh wait, one more. I got one more. There we go. Okay, so this was the other idea that we had that we didn't know how the hell this would even work. Like, how? I don't even know.
Yeah,
but
because like we'd have the opposite problem where now we would have to account that there'd have to be less water for the sea lines to stay the same.
I think the way that we can go with this is that there just happens to be way more land, and this is extremely I mean, this is one that I think is extremely unscientific to think about. But let's take away the entire, development of humanity and everything, and every single butterfly effect that comes from this thing existing, and
okay.
One, I'm thinking what me and Tiger Star theorized is that the world would actually be significantly colder because the global current would be basically cut in half.
Oh yeah.
If you can see.
Yeah, the El Nino and La Nina effect would basically not happen.
Yeah, pretty much all the water from the Atlantic that flows into the Pacific and everything would be. Look, I think we can teach good old ocean currents right now. That will be fun.
Yep.
I'm gonna look it up because you guys take forever to look up pictures.
Because of ocean currents, this is why if you look at the southern hemisphere, it's on average warmer than the northern half of the planet, even in like wintertime. And it's because there's a lot more water, which means it stores more energy than like ground.
Also, it's the way that trying to find the actual picture.
And the water moves around a lot more freer because there's less land, which means that the temperature evens out a bit more.
Okay, so we're going to get rid of these two. And we got this. And then we got this. So, the way that I think this is a good way, the best equivalent I could say is the thing that happens in the day after tomorrow. So, the way that currents usually happen is water gets heated up at the equator, and then it flows up, and then it gets colder and it sinks back down as it reaches the Arctic. And the way that this
alternate geography hub.
And so this basic thing is what, in really short generalizing terms, is what gives us the ocean currents. I'm trying to pull up something now. Okay, cool.
Pretty much.
But the thing is that if you can look at the East Australian Current, the EAC, that is one that goes right underneath Australia. And if Terra Australis was real, then that means that this warm current that would go down couldn't then cycle into it would basically be cut off from the rest of the world. I forgot. Okay, so going on to South America, pretty much the
So basically the difference is that the entire Antarctic Ocean is land.
Yeah, the entire
most of it, yeah.
It's pretty much one big current that is then cut off, and so
yes.
Long story short, the Gulf Stream then can't give warm water really to. I mean, yeah. But anyway,
And then also something that should note, because it's attached to Australia, and most of the maps also showed New Zealand would be a part of it, so that's gone. Basically, like any like rainforests in Australia and New Zealand are gone. The Great Australian Desert probably wouldn't be there, so the climates there would be different. And also, since the current tends to blow any sailors down to the South Island of New Zealand or the southern coast of Australia, since those don't exist, the Pacific Islanders likely wouldn't land in those areas the same way as they did in our timeline. So the Maori and the Aborigines probably wouldn't exist except maybe on the northern coast of Australia.
So some interesting things that stick out to me are the coastlines on this new continent are high enough that I could see some very interesting changes happening with human migration. So
like
it being the first one that sticks out is the coast with South Africa, and that is that there is a chance that in a reasonable time in the past that African people would have crossed that narrow sea and settled in this new continent, and then also about 10,000, 11,000 years ago, the indigenous peoples of the Americas, once they had settled all the way down to the tip of South America, some of these maps show them as attached, so they would have spread into this area as well. And so the peopling of this continent would be really interesting, and it would be mostly probably people coming from either from the southern tips of Africa and South America. And that would mean that there'd be a lot more biological mixing between these two sides of the world, which would probably at least alleviate a little bit of the disease problem that came with the Columbian exchange.
Actually, yeah, because now that I think about it, if it might be possible that if both settle the southern continent and the coastlines are close enough, smallpox could become rampant in the New World before Columbus gets over there, which would increase resistance. And then also, just because they'd be attached alone would mean that, like, for example, Portuguese explorers, when they try to go around Africa, would find out about this continent. They would explore that, and it might be possible that America might be discovered by the Europeans a few centuries earlier.
But the thing is that weren't God, I can't speak today. I don't know why. Weren't Aborigines basically decimated by European diseases, just like natives too? So wouldn't they?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like they would have if this continent existed, that would mean that there would be potentially 1,000 years, if not more, of humans either crossing over, interacting, and stuff like that.
Well, I'm saying the people interacting with each other would be two groups that don't have smallpox. So then they
because smallpox comes from Africa.
Yeah, like the thing is, there would also possibly be a connection between the people who live in South Africa and the Australia. So there'd be like the remnants of like the Zulus.
Oh, you guys were theorizing that the Africans would cross over.
Yeah, so
they could be part of the human peopling of the world. Like
they'd settle on the coast, they'd make their way west, and then the South Americans would do the same way but head eastward.
I'm going to say that I don't believe the Africans would cross into Terra Australis. and this is why.
Well, it's a fictional continent, so wherever the coast would be.
Well, I'm saying that, I mean, Madagascar existed, and Africans didn't cross into Madagascar, so
Okay, that's true.
why would they cross into something that's significantly farther? I mean,
Okay, well then maybe the Malay might get into this continent and discover South America.
yeah, I'm saying if anybody would actually discover it, it might be like the Indians or the Arabs, but I don't think the Africans would.
But the indigenous, I think the first humans on that continent would be indigenous South Americans.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Because it looks like they're basically attached, and so that means that.
Well, actually, no.
I think
it would probably be Aborigines, because Aborigines were like on Australia for what, 60,000 years. So, and I don't think the Native Americans reached it like 12,000 years ago. So, I mean, technically.
Well, either way.
Yeah, technically in terms of continent, I think.
I mean, they'd be two whole halves of the continent that'd be so far away from each other.
Oh, yeah. Like, they would basically not even really interact until, like, a few thousand years ago, if anything. So.
Yeah, by the quote-unquote age of exploration, though, they would be pretty well blended. It'd be its, like, own continent made up of, like, a mix of these two peoples. And,
at least on the coast.
Yeah, and then there would also... Well, yeah, because this continent is, like, it's still on the South Pole, and it's really contiguous, which means that the coast would be pretty nice, but once you got further into the interior, it would be very dry, and then it would start getting really cold really fast.
I mean, we'd see pretty much a Siberia effect, and if there's anybody that would live, they'd pretty much just hug next to the ocean, and that'd be it.
Although I could see, like, looking at this map, like looking at the kind of old map, I could almost see, if you look at like this, it's like the southeast coast of South America, and like this new continent, you could almost see like a little like Mediterranean effect happening there.
Yeah, maybe
it could work. But yeah,
I'm just imagining though, like Europe, by the time, like, if Europe still presumably takes over most of the world, that colonizing this continent would be quite fun for them.
I'm thinking, really, I mean, this could be a very good stopping point throughout their journey. So think about, like, there'd be like the sea that would be between Africa and whatever this mysterious continent would be. So really, they could create maybe a little sort of culture area in South Africa and then Northern Terra Australis, and they could kind of have their own little trading thing going on.
Yeah, I think that the continent would help a lot with having a lot of these southern hemisphere cultures having more of a like globalized trade network and connection with each other. So maybe when they came to this region, like, these places would not be as underdeveloped as we thought, because they would have had way more time to trade and learn from each other and that kind of stuff.
But yeah, this is why we didn't actually try to theorize this, because just by trying to think about it doesn't really make for a good 10-minute video unless we don't want to do, like, freaking 30 minutes just for a fiction. That doesn't work. That's why I like. I
mean, that's kind of like the weird catch-22 of alternate history. If it changes too much, then it's impossible to have any familiarity with normal history. And so there's nothing to latch onto, because I think a lot of people enjoy an alternate history. It's like, yeah, things are different, but I still recognize X president and Y country and Z war.
I think it really works for what you're aiming for in an alternate history. I think this even goes for, I mean, the alternate history novel that I'm making is very, very far away from what we traditionally think. It has a little bit of elements, but it's like, I think the good part of alternate history is really the story, and the reason why I didn't like these two videos is that the story isn't really interesting in the end. All it is humanity is really, really changed, or like there's like nothing that could happen. I mean, the alternate history videos and the alternate history fiction are two different things. So I think for the YouTube one, there has to be at least a little bit of realism, because it's it's a 10-minute YouTube video basically thinking about this particular thing. It doesn't have a story. It doesn't have a thing that really needs to tell. It doesn't have characters. And then alternate history books, yeah, you have the scenario, but the main important thing is your characters and the situation. So you can have more crazy sort of, you know, out there scenarios. You don't need to just have country A interact with country B because you have people talking. So yeah, I don't know if that was what you were getting with Tiger Star, but I was like, I mean, alternate history at its core is science fiction. So I think you can have crazy alternate history stuff, it just not in alternate history hub because.
Oh no, I agree. I'm just saying that that's what like the majority of people wouldn't latch onto. They'd want something familiar to latch onto.
Yeah. So
we're different because we're nerds.
I mean,
Okay.
I would watch it, but I mean, this is the same thing of how many people would watch it too. So that was the thing we were going. Anyway, you guys want to actually start?
I've got an unfortunate story from the chat apparently.
What?
Somebody who apparently misplaced a decimal point to give that $50 super chat by accident. It was supposed to be $4.99.
Said he retracted it, so.
But like, just wanted to mention and be like, that really sucks. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think he gets it. He gets his money back, right? Isn't that how it works?
Never got that guitar from the shop.
I think that's how it works. I think you get your money back if you retract it. I'm not too familiar with how Super Chat works. We've just started using it. But anyway, yeah, we can start. You guys want to start with questions and stuff like that?
Sure.
Awesome. So, let me see. Oh, okay. So we're gonna do these a little out of order. Justice McGinnis asks, this is gonna be a pretty quick one. What if there was a 10th Crusade, Crusade X? I think the thing is that the Crusades aren't really... The Crusades are like a period of time that it's like... We often like to think of every single Crusade as like super crucial and important, but really it's only like the first 3, and the 4th one's only important because it was such a clusterfuck. So I think if you had a 10th Crusade, it would be much like the 6th and the 7th and the 8th and the 9th Crusade, that it would be very small and minuscule and wouldn't really affect too much in the grand scheme of everything, because Crusades were voluntary, and if you could think of them, they were very much like a fad. So once everybody, Crusades didn't just like stop one day, they were gradual over time. They stopped becoming popular again, or they just became too damn hard to actually do and nobody wanted to go fight anymore. So Crusade X would pretty much just be more pathetic than Crusade 9, and wouldn't really be the bombastic grand attempt of Crusade 1 and 2 and 3, and I think that's pretty much what would happen. You guys agree?
Plus, but like also there kind of was a 10th Crusade and an 11th and 12th and 13th and 14th and blah 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 blah, because we know the 9 Crusades that went to the Holy Land and we talk about those, but there's also the Baltic Crusades, there's the Northern Crusades, there's the Crusade where randomly guys from Cyprus decided to take Alexandria and Egypt. There was one.
I'm talking about. Well, I was just talking about the Crusade into like the Holy Land again, the traditional Crusade. Yeah, I mean,
sure, but even then, there's the main ones, and there's also the Venetian one, and there's also the Children's Crusade.
Well,
which,
yeah,
I mean, granted, it didn't make it, but So I mean, the whole point is there's tons of other Crusades.
I was answering his question. I wasn't just going to say there was already a 10th Crusade. Screw you. I wasn't gonna...
Well, I know. Yeah. But continuing that, though, if we say, assume that the 10th Crusade is attacking Alexandria and Egypt, so what if Cyprus decided to stupidly attack Libya? Sorry, not Libya, Egypt. That wouldn't end very well, and they would die at the end.
Yeah, By the end, it was like if Europeans wanted to geopolitically mess with somewhere in the Middle East, they would call it a crusade, and then that kind of got tired.
And the opposite,
But yeah,
and with Muslims too. So yeah, it was back and forth. Yippee. So William Elaney asks, Cody, did you get that anime list? How'd you like? I didn't. I don't know what that is. Anyway,
Emperor Tiger Star didn't deliver. A few episodes ago, Emperor Tiger Star said he was going to give you a list of good animes for you to watch.
Oh yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
Well, no, but then you said you didn't want it because you weren't going to watch them.
And I didn't. I haven't watched an anime yet. So, huh.
I actually after that episode, I tried watching a little bit of Full Metal Alchemist.
Tried.
I watched a few episodes and I kind of forgot to keep watching it. It's okay. It's not like rocking my world or anything.
That's how
you have. I keep saying you have to do Death Note. That's probably the best one.
That's how I am with most anime, though. It's like you watch the first few episodes and you're like, yeah, it's good, but then it's like something just doesn't. I can never finish them. It does, like, I get distracted or it's not.
You'll be
enough.
invested in Death Note.
Yeah. I just like I get it, and then I'm like, okay, if the show doesn't like change and do something really cool soon, I'm gonna get kind of bored.
Yeah,
Death Note. I'm telling you.
So anyway,
all right.
William Elaney asks, have you ever proven a teacher wrong in school? How? I actually have a pretty good story with this, to be honest. So,
I have a similar story after you're done where I didn't prove a teacher wrong, but I really wanted to, but like my throat was really bad, so I really couldn't speak up, and it was really frustrating.
I had I was in high school. I think I was 11th grade, and I had this literature teacher. We were reading Beowulf, and Beowulf is like Scandinavians and they're Vikings and stuff like that. My lit teacher had it in her head that Vikings actually did wear those helmets, and then I spoke up and I was like, you know that Vikings actually didn't wear their helmets, right? Like they didn't have those horns on their helmets. They had that was made up, and that was just in the operas and stuff, and that just became the sort of stereotype. And then she looked at me and she was like, well, where did you hear that? And I said, and then I thought back, and I was thinking I first heard of it through the CGP Grey video. But then I wasn't going to say YouTube because for some reason I thought like that would sound bad. So
it wouldn't sound credible.
So I was like, I just saw on this article on the internet, and she was like, you shouldn't listen to everything you see on the internet. And then she basically went on to say that Vikings did wear horns on their helmets, and that I was being stupid. And then
yes.
I just kind of sat there thinking, my God, I want to graduate already.
Okay. I have a high school story. I mean, like keep in mind, this will be a little sketchy because I graduated high school in 2006, so my memories are a little haggard. But I will say that there was a time where, I mean, I was super Canadian about it, but we had a teacher who was teaching the First World War. Forgot to mention that the Ottoman Empire was involved in any way, shape, or form. And I just mentioned it to her after class, and I was like, because like she basically took the initial Central Powers and the initial Entente powers and said that that's what World War I was, and I was like, oh, it wasn't Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Italy backed out and then switched sides, and the Ottomans joined in soon after.
Oh, I hate it when they do that.
So that was it. But I decided that because I know that like raising your hand and being a goof in school is not a way to make friends. So I just told it to her after class.
So for mine, this was actually like a month ago. I'm taking an African history class, and it's really interesting. But naturally, the first thing we're going to talk about is Egypt. And we were talking about the New Kingdom of Egypt, and that entire week, my throat was really bad, which you may have remembered a few podcasts ago where my throat was really sore and I coughed a lot.
Yep.
It was that week. And basically in class, he was talking about how, like, the New Kingdom of Egypt expanded territorially to heights that Egypt had never seen before, blah, 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 which is true. But then he posted a map And I gave Cody that map, and if he would put it on the screen, this is the map that he used for Egypt. And the problem with this map
I don't have.
is that
I
it.
don't have the map. I don't know who.
Oh, you don't?
No.
I just sent it to you.
Oh. Okay. Cool. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, see, Cody already knows. So even though this map was blank, this is not a map of Egypt. I mean, it showed Egypt, but basically he seemed to confuse the shape of ancient Egypt to the Ottoman Empire.
Boy.
And he was saying that, like, yeah, as you can see on this map, Egypt managed to expand all the way up to Hungary and Algeria and half the Middle East. And I really wanted to like speak up and say something so badly, but my throat was killing me. So I had to this is like one of the biggest
That
tortures
hurts.
of my entire life, of just sitting there and just as the teacher is spreading deliberate misinformation. Well, I don't know if it's deliberate, idiotic misinformation of Egypt being that big and somehow controlling those huge chunks of Europe and all that stuff like that.
Oh god.
And the worst part is I couldn't tell if anyone in the classroom knew. Because it's dark, because this teacher likes to like lecture with like all the lights off and the windows closed, and so it's just really dark in the room. But like no one else is speaking up though, so it's just like, oh gosh, all these people are going to take in this huge misinformation and think that Egypt was the size of the Ottoman Empire. And
I'm so confused though, because it's like, how can you have a degree and teach this in school and not know this? Like,
what is this even a map of?
It's the Ottoman
Empire.
Yeah, it's the Ottoman.
Oh, it's the Ottoman Empire. It's like largest extent.
Yeah,
not quite largest. That's like era of Suleiman, but still pretty large. And either way, it's grossly overestimating Egypt's size.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so this was killing me quite badly. It was,
delete this. Just delete
what if this was the extent of the Egyptian Empire?
Then Egypt never would have fallen.
God has left the server.
Egypt's key was staying small but stable. That was their whole thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like, part of it was like, yeah, this is quite a horrible error, but like the territorial extent of the new kingdom in Egypt was hardly the most important thing about that unit. So it's not like this was going to be something on the test that people would answer on a question or anything like that. But still, like, it hurt.
Next question. Joseph John asks, which video brought the most hindsight regret?
Ooh.
You guys can answer that first, because I'm gonna go get a drink. So.
All right. Probably most recent one was the one where I took a shot on Jordan Peterson, not because I actually like Jordan Peterson, he's an awful human being, but because I did the video really lazily and really fast, and my camera had coffee on it, and it was really just bad all around. The other one would probably be Iceland, because I did a video about Iceland where I got a lot of it wrong, and I felt really bad about it.
Let me think. I mean, there's kind of multiple, because my channel has been around since I was in middle school, so there are several of my older videos where the overall quality is just much lower. And so, it's more like, oh gosh, I need to redo that video now that I'm like smarter and much better with Microsoft Paint. But in terms of, I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a video that I like necessarily regret doing other than just, oh, this one's old and it needs to be updated. Like, I don't think I've ever like regretted anything that I can think of.
I don't know what to say.
I mean, there's one that I kind of got backlash on, but I still didn't necessarily regret it per se.
They're asking us to talk shit about Cody while he's gone.
Nah.
What?
What? Nothing.
So about that coup to overthrow Cody, Tristan, what were you saying?
At dawn, we plan.
So anyway, I actually do have I have a lot of regrets. I actually think about it. At least in topics, I would say alternate history is that topic that you don't know if people are actually going to be interested in it. I don't know if it's because I'm just so damn nerdy or anything, but I upload a video and I think it's going to get a lot of good views, and then it just ends up bombing. I've had a lot of those lately. I would actually say probably the top of the list is actually our collaboration, Tiger Star. The last
Which
video,
one?
the last video.
Yeah. It kind of
bombed.
did. I was kind of disappointed.
I think we vastly overestimated the popularity of Turtle Dove. Sorry if you're.
No, I don't think it was necessarily Turtle Dove. I think it's more this scenario.
Well,
Harry Turtledove's listening to the show and he just starts crying.
Well, yeah, I guess it's not. Well,
because the Southern Victory one didn't do that bad by any means.
Yeah, true. But also,
I think since this is like more sci-fi, because this is aliens in World War II, it's just not going to be as interesting to some people.
Yeah, I guess it's just like for us when we see World War II and aliens, we think, oh, that's wacky. That's pretty cool. And
hijinks ensue.
Yeah, and hijinks ensue, and he's like, oh, I kind of want to ensue, and it's like, oh, I kind of want to see that, and honestly, it was probably the best video I've ever made. But one, it was like a double whammy. It was people didn't click on it because it was World War II with aliens, even with the sci-fi factor, and two, YouTube doesn't like World War II stuff. So that video got completely demonetized. And if you get demonetized, it gets just never shows up in search results. And so it completely just died.
I kind of have a demonetization story, kind of.
Oh, yeah?
Remember how before demonetization was a thing, everyone was complaining about copyright?
Yeah.
It just seemed like, wow, people haven't been complaining about copyright lately. It's all been just, normal demonetization stuff. But then one of my videos actually got a copyright claim on it. And what was really weird is, well, firstly, it was annoying because it was one of my really popular videos over the entire history of Europe every year.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the last videos that I wanted to get something on. But also, the thing that was claiming it, the portion of the video, was something called cat music. And for a while, I didn't know if this was like a real thing or if this was like someone like cat music, ha 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 ha, like someone's like somehow doing this to purposefully sabotage.
It's Cool Cat.
Something.
He's coming.
I guess,
he's
but
claiming.
I guess, but I looked it up, and there actually is an Eastern European record company called Cat Music, so it was a real thing. But what was really weird is, firstly, all the music that I got from that video was from a royalty-free website, so they had no basis anyway.
Yeah.
And they didn't even say, oh, this clearly matches our song, blah, 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 blah. It just said, oh, this is match content. And so I wasn't sure what they could have possibly confused it for. But then when I went to check and see, okay, it gave a minute portion of the video, so I wanted to see which song they were talking about, because the video had 3 different songs in it. It was Bach. So not only was it from a royalty-free website, but they were somehow trying to claim that they had a copyright claim over Bach.
So did it work?
No. I mean, the thing went away after, 3 days. But it was still the first copyright thing problem that I've had in quite a long time, and it was very annoying. I'm just gonna complain to YouTube right now. You should have someone that makes sure that what they're trying to copyright claim isn't classical music that's been in the public domain for over 200 years now.
Yeah,
it'd be kind of a good idea.
Do you think it would actually be kind of? I think we should. Okay, so we'll do this. Everybody just kind of. Well, I think we're pretty done taking suggestions in the super chat. We'll get to all the super chat questions, but I think we should at least answer 1 or 2 questions from Twitter. If that sounds good.
Any super chats after this are a donation.
Yeah, we already have so many. Anyway,
which is great. We really appreciate your guys' enthusiasm and attention.
Thank you so much, and we'll get to the scenarios in a bit.
So I found one on Twitter. This one's from the Alsace Nationalist. What if Latin America became possadist during the mid 1900s? And basically, what that's saying is somehow in the mid 1900s, all of South America becomes Trotskyist.
Damn.
That would be like a Cold War nightmare for the United States, and we would be toppling so many governments left and right. It would be ridiculous.
Yeah. America would just put its CIA black ops shit into overdrive, and
because like even if all of South America became Trotskyist and they banded together, like the level of like ease it was to just simply topple someone and then put in a military dictator in South America and around the world, we would have just kept doing it over and over and over again, unless somehow the Soviet Union decides, well, hey, the Cuban Missile Crisis was a great idea. Let's have the Brazilian Missile Crisis or something like that. But
yeah, I just talked about this on my stream with Mexi today, and it's just like, yeah, the like America's like, you know, Monroe Doctrine, like micromanaging all of Latin America still knows no bounds. So they would just screw around with them until they put in the dictators that America likes, which is like the story of Latin American history.
Meanwhile, the Soviet Union's just like trying to rush as much as they can, putting as many weapons down there.
Yeah.
I have like literally nothing to contribute to this. I've done so many Cold War scenarios. I'm like, I've gotten the Cold War out of my head.
You got a Cold War cold?
I've got a Cold War world. Oh God, I can't even speak. I cannot speak today. I don't know what's wrong.
You have done so many World War IIIs.
I have. I've done way too much. I think I've done 3 World War.
You should actually get a fan. If there's a fan out there, we will give you a shout out in the next episode if you can actually go through Cody's channel and find out how many World War IIIs he's put together.
Oh God,
that wouldn't take that much effort.
It'd be like an embarrassing amount. I don't even want to. Oh no.
So many WW3s and W4s.
So anyway, speaking of fans, Caden Bain Vainsel asks, what date can the United Arabia video be expected in case the viewers lose patience and disturb you guys? One, please don't.
Oh, it's in the works.
One, please don't disturb us. We'll actually have the video out when the video's out, and 2, the video's actually finished. It's just there's some behind the scenes technical stuff, and so it's not out yet. Just because it's not out doesn't mean it's not finished. Please stop asking.
Yeah, a video takes a lot of work to do, so
yeah, this is
respect the process.
Like it feels almost like there's a lot of times that people are like we have to basically give them this video because, you know, they demand it, they need it, and
plus Cody puts off projects another 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I will say to this, because Cody is a bit too modest for this kind of thing. When Cody works on his videos, he goes all in. Like when we did our collaboration together for like almost a week leading up to the release, he was pulling several all-nighters. Like, yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, it's like there's a ton of work that goes into this, and then you release it, and then people are like, okay, this is nice, but how about the next video that we demand? And like, I guess that's just something that comes with the whole job. But anyway, I guess we could do. I'm looking at. We'll do one more Twitter one. I kind of want to just talk about the book a little bit. Do you guys just to let people know, because some people are curious about what I was doing.
Yeah, it's your show.
Okay, cool. So, Comment Lord says, tell us about the book. I like your straightforward attitude. So I'm not going to say a ton, but I'm going to, I guess, put up, I have, one.
Not Cody 123 asks, how's your book doing?
Not Cody. Oh, thank you for asking, not me. But no, actually, this is something, I don't even know, I don't think I signed an, I think I can talk about it, just not a ton. I'm just gonna say basic plot stuff.
Well, there's characters and the plot. It's pretty great.
No, but all I'm gonna
there's
say,
a history, but what if the history was different from the history?
All I'm gonna say is basically the book. I'm working on it with Joe from Real Life Lore, and it's about a world where the Atlantropa Project, which was when they planned to build 2 massive dams at both ends of the Mediterranean, and drain the sea to create this new continent that was going to be called Atlantropa. What if that was actually like created, and basically it creates this whole chain of events. It makes this almost alternate fantasy world, and it changes the effects of the whole 20th century, how like if World War II even happens, how Nazi Germany interacts with the rest of the world, and I just have, it basically has, there's a whole ramifications for anything. But anyway, that's all I'm gonna say, is basically it's about this world that's created when the Atlantropa project actually is made. So that's it. That's all I'm gonna say about the book. That's all. It will come out later this year.
It's exciting.
Anyway,
it sounds good. It sounds good from what I've heard.
Oh, thank you. But anyway, I think we'll get to the super chats and then we can wrap this up. Sound good?
Super chat.
Okay, cool. So, Eric Denisk asks, what if the USSR attacked Germany in 1941? What? Oh boy, that'd be dumb.
Are we presuming that they attacked them first?
Yeah.
All right, so on these things, so I'm not a World War II expert like you guys, but isn't there like a quote from Hitler saying that, like, basically if like the Soviets had attacked any earlier, he would have been caught with his pants down, and he's like glad that he was able to make the gambit?
Kinda, yeah. At least for like 1940, yes.
I think by
like
1941, if they've already moved so much equipment and troops and everything for preparation,
because that's why he called off the attack on Britain.
Yeah, it'd basically be the Soviets. If they attacked in 1941, they'd be just attacking a wall, and then that would be kickstarting the. I guess the Germans would just go, "Oh, they attacked us. I guess the invasion could go forward." And
and they just don't help Italy at all.
Yeah. William Elena asks, what if the USA entered the Central Powers? Central Powers would win. Simple as
Watch
that.
our Southern Victory collaboration to see that.
Yep. Simple.
The Central Powers, keep in mind, World War I was very much like on a razor thin edge about who was going to win up until the very end. So it was pretty much the effect of the U.S. entering the war and the Spanish flu that tipped it the way it did. So.
Yep. I mean, the French were basically on the brink of complete collapse, and everybody was just super tired of the war, and Germany was the one that simply, was caught on the wrong side. And that's all it was.
That's why. That's why Germany thinks that. That's why there was so many like revanchism, or like a feeling that like an unjust loss happened in Germany, because the Germans, a lot of German soldiers felt like they were winning right up until the moment they lost.
Oh yeah, I'd feel mad. I'd feel so mad. Like
that was kind of the anger that like Hitler kind of capitalized upon.
Yeah.
In fact, the French Prime Minister was complaining that all the French people were enthusiastic about the Americans, and he complained that everyone called Wilson the second coming of Christ. That's how happy they were.
Wow. That's not...
Yep.
Reenactor doing reenacting stuff, I love that name, by the way, asks, what if the Soviets, quote-unquote, won the Soviet-Afghan War?
Afghanistan would be a Soviet state.
Yeah, I guess you could really just kind of say the same thing America did in 2001. The Soviets would kind of do...
There's a few things you could say to it. Like, if they had won, the Soviet Union would have still collapsed, definitely. It would have been a bit slower, so like maybe a few years later. But it does mean that Afghanistan probably wouldn't have gone down the path of like religious extremism.
I still think they would.
Went down in
I still think they would, to be honest. Afghanistan is one of the few places in the world that will not change ever, and the thing is that it's basically bordered. It's bordered by Pakistan, who would, even if the Soviets would not invade that, most of the Taliban is in Pakistan, and even if the Soviets were somehow able to create like the government and win the war like they did, it's the same situation the United States is in now. What's going to stop the next generation from rising up and basically, going after the infidel, especially, the godless infidel, And so I feel like there will always be that next sort of Taliban in Afghanistan, because the country basically is just a bunch of warring states. So I don't feel like the Soviets could ever actually unify it. If the United States can't even do it, I don't think a post-Soviet Afghanistan would be able to do it either.
I'm just thinking more like how much like Afghanistan was actually pretty modern and fairly secular in like the 70s, and then like the 80s is when the wars are kind of like what destabilized it.
It was only secular in like the 1% bubbles. That was it. The 1% bubbles was, the rest of it was basically just tribal, like biblical times tribal.
Yeah, but secular doesn't mean that the majority of the population is secular. It just means that the government is secular. That's what secular means.
But the thing is that it doesn't matter if the government collapses anyway. I'm saying that even if the Soviets still collapse, the Afghanistan government is still going to collapse, because there's still going to be that Islamic jihadist element against the Afghan government. There's still going to be that Taliban or something like the Taliban that's going to rise back up and take Kabul. So that's what I'm saying, is that Afghanistan is like a nation state that can't really ever survive, because...
Well, actually, no. The Taliban might have a harder time taking over Afghanistan, and it might just remain in a perpetual civil war, because Ronald Reagan financially supported the Taliban to resist as partisans against the Soviets. So if this is somehow a situation where the Soviets win in Afghanistan, we wouldn't be funding them for like the 5 years in the 80s.
Yeah, but what counts as winning? What counts as winning in the war? Does winning count as like the U.S. winning? Like, what's going to stop
it would depend. The Soviets would either A, annex the country, which would be unlikely, or B, they would just reinstall the communist government in Afghanistan.
And then that government would inevitably collapse anyway.
Maybe, maybe not. Because if the Soviets can they drive the rebels back just enough to put it back in place, and then they give them more weapons, it would be harder to remove them from power.
But I'm saying that the Taliban still exists in Pakistan.
Because we funded them, yes.
Yeah, we're still going to fund them. So I'm saying that no matter what, the Taliban's still going to happen because of America, and also because of the state of Afghanistan. And so
America's not above like funding a terrorist group to be a constant stick in the craw for a state like that.
So it's always going to be that way, and that's what So that's depressing. Anyway, okay. Justice McGinnis asks, what if there's a revolution in the United States between alt-left and alt-right? Would militias help?
It would. Okay, first off, that's not going to happen.
That's not a revolution. That's just a civil war.
And besides,
see, like the majority of the alt right are people living in their mother's basement, and the majority of the alt left are the alt left isn't even a thing, but the majority of the alt left are just students who have to worry about college debt.
Well, the alt left is a thing, but the alt left is also people that are living in their basement.
Not quite as much as people think. Like the alt left was kind of more of just like oh yeah, well, if you think the alt right exists, well, what about the alt left type thing? Like it isn't like as much of like a quote organized political entity.
No, it was like a smear word that like
it just kind of caught
partisan Democrats used for like the rising socialist movement in America.
Like even the people that they accuse of being on the alt left don't identify as the alt left.
I don't think the alt right's even a thing. Like
it kind of is.
Not. I mean, the alt right. The alt right is like is an internet meme. That's all I'm gonna say it is. Like, because me and who was it?
Yeah, and Heather Heyer had that meme run right over her, didn't she?
Well, I'm saying that alt-right is a term for, I mean, like it's such a small, minuscule thing. Like that's the thing that I was.
No, I agree. No, I agree. It is very small, but I'm just saying that, like, for example, a lot of like they're calling a lot of people on the so-called alt-left that aren't actually alt-left, but just a part of different groups that they're just trying to group together.
If you are, okay, this is what I'm saying. If you are the alternative to what the traditional United States conservatism is, then I guess you could be deemed what is alt-right. If you are alternative to what the traditional liberal in the United States is, then you are alt-left. That's what the term is, alternative left, alternative right. So
Okay, but there's different meanings.
Yeah, but see, that doesn't quite work, because then wouldn't that mean conservatives are an alternative to the left, and then liberals are an alternative to a right?
I'm saying the alternative to the mainstream identity of what a Democrat is, and to what a Republican conservative is. So I'm saying what the alt-right is the alt-right basically deems itself different from mainstream conservatism because it has a preference for white nationalism. So all the alt-right is just white nationalists. That's the actual term for them. The alt-right term is just a meme for what the actual term is, which is white nationalists. And then the alt-left is more murky, but it's pretty much anybody that's farther left than progressives, which is pretty much like, communist anarchists, regular communists.
It came up. It started its use on Twitter as a bunch of Democrats using it as a way to say that people who voted for Bernie Sanders were like just as bad as the Trump supporters, and they're the reason why Clinton lost.
Bernie supporters and Trump supporters are not alt left or alt right. I would say what could even be considered.
Well, no, but both terms are stupid anyway.
Yeah,
they're both terms that are used to describe other groups that already exist that we just decide to bunch together because we don't agree with them.
Well,
and then the alt left was kind of made to make a false equivalence.
Yeah. Well, so what I'm saying is that if there is a revolution between alt left and alt right, like there's such small, minuscule internet memes, basically, that there is no way that could ever be a thing. Like, I think the internet really gives a bigger emphasis on how grander these things are than they really are. Like, they're not. It's not like everybody it's not like half of the country identifies as alt right, half of it identifies as alt left. It's like,
well, yeah,
very fringe people. And I mean, I think 4chan's poll brings in like what 100,000 people every day across the world. That's like a percentage of a percentage. That's like the amount I get on a YouTube video in like 5 hours. So that would be like taking the alternate history hub community, or at least a fraction of the alternate history hub community, and saying that's a political movement. So it's like,
yeah, I mean, this is just one of the many cases in history of the loudest group not anywhere near being the majority, even though we like to think it is because they're the loudest.
Yep. So I don't think alt-right is, so I just get annoyed.
So like I said, they'll be ordered by their mothers to go back to their basement or their college classes.
Yep. And
then nothing happens.
And alt-left the same. So they're both.
And the militias wouldn't do anything because those militia people, oh man, they're a kooky bunch.
Well, no, it depends which militia.
Militias aren't.
I'm thinking of like what's it called, like the militia movement.
Militias aren't.
Well, no, because
militias aren't alt-right.
Well, no. Militia is a neutral organization. Like the State Guard is essentially a militia.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about the militia movement, and they're a kooky thing in themselves.
The militia movement.
Yeah, like what's it called? Timothy McVeigh was part of it, and like they're like what's it called? They're like preppers who want to collect a bunch of guns and are like ready for like declaring civil war. It's a whole different topic, and they're a whole different group, and they've been around way longer.
See, we call those people crazy people.
Well, I don't think militias are crazy. I don't think militias are crazy at all.
No, there's a difference between militias and the militia movement.
Yeah, I'm not saying that militias are crazy. I'm saying the people that Tristan are describing are crazy.
Because the thing is that they're basically, the militia movement differs by what state you're in.
Well, they were like the people who did that thing where they occupied that government building in Oregon or whatever.
But that's not a real thing we have to worry about. That's just a bunch of crazy people.
I'm saying that there are basically, the militia movement isn't technically a movement. It's fractured between anybody that basically wants to create a movement. That's all it is. So you can have official state militias, which you can have, I mean, Ohio, we have an official state militia. Tyler is a part of it. And they're actually a organization. But then you can have smaller, more extreme militias that don't account to anybody. There's no accountability to that. And they can, yes, still technically be a militia, but that's all they are. They're not a part of a greater movement. You can have people in a trailer who want to go to war against the government, and they're like 5 of them, and they can still be considered a militia. That's what Timothy McVeigh did, is he basically went to a bunch of those trailer people, and even though it was considered, they were considered militias too, and they were militias, they weren't a part of a grander movement.
When the Trailer Park Boys went too far.
I think the best example of this is the differentiation between the Ohio militias and the Michigan militia. The Michigan militia is...
Yeah, they're infamous.
Yeah, the Michigan militia is a joke. Everybody makes fun of them. And they're basically always... People just sigh because they give the militia movement a bad name, or whatever is considered the militias. While you have more organized and, I will say, smarter people in Ohio who... basically have more realistic views of what they do for militias. So I don't like putting that whole blanket on that. Anyway, let's see.
Next super chat.
Yeah, next super chat. Okay. What if the Ottoman Empire was the Egyptian Empire? Then it'd be the Egyptian Empire.
It'd be pretty cool. We'd have a pyramid in Constantinople / Istanbul / Byzantium, and it'd be quite nice.
Praise Ra.
What if the Albany Plan of Union worked? What's that?
Oh, that was a thing where, like, during... I can't remember if it was the French and Indian War or if it was a different war against Native Americans, but Benjamin Franklin is like, hey, what if his colonies, like, united together as a single dominion? And then all the colonies were like, no, let's not. And so it didn't happen. So basically, like in the 1740s, I want to say, you'd have to look it up. If that would have happened, we would have become the Dominion of America. And then I'm not sure how much that would change. It would either fall apart before the American Revolution, or we'd be more united in the American Revolution. But, I mean, it would certainly save us a lot of trouble in terms of, like, making the Constitution and stuff, because states wouldn't be a thing anymore.
Well, that's yeah. William Elena, man, thank you for your contribution, William Elena. Asks, what if the Persian Empire never fell?
Which one?
Exactly. Like, there's so many. I guess the best we could say
None
is
of them. None of them. They all are like fighting each other for
interlap.
dominance over. Just like the Achaemenid and the
Achaemenids.
I mean, if the Achaemenids never fell, presumably they won at Marathon and just conquered all of Western civilization, and they somehow just rule the quote known world and forever, and like humanity just does not ever advance past that. Then cool. We all speak Persian, or we're never born.
I think that's the easiest way that we can say that without going into like a 30-minute conversation. So we'll just
praise Zoroaster.
Let's have it like that. Deus Vult. Anyway, Justice McGinnis says he actually figured it out. Thank you. So apparently I've had 7 or 6 World War III vids out of a total of, I have like 110.
So that's not that bad.
No, but
yeah, I'm actually kind of disappointed.
Yeah. So
that's like maybe a 12th.
Yeah, it's like a 12th. And for the topic that is, who knows? Sync98 says, what if Gran Colombia survived? I love the concept of Gran Colombia. I always love that.
It would be a great country. Everyone would be happy to go there on vacation.
And we likely wouldn't have gotten the Panama Canal, because we wouldn't have been able to so easily fund Panama against them. And so there never would have been a Panama Canal, at least not there. And so the canal probably would have gone through Nicaragua instead.
Venezuela wouldn't be in the situation they're in. Tell you that.
Ooh.
Man, I'm thinking that would be one that I feel would require its own video.
Do it.
Maybe we can do that one next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about. Actually, we'll do that.
I want to see what
Actually,
Simon Bolivar looks like in your art
Yeah.
style.
So anybody
We'll
who's
do
watching this,
Let's do Grand Cubby next week.
so anybody who's watching this, in case we somehow forget, just tweet to us like on Sunday and say talk about Grand Columbia, and that seems good. We'll talk about that next week. Marshall Lathers, thanks for your contribution. Justice McGinnis basically asked the rest. So we got two more, and this will be the end. He asks, what do you think of micronations like Sealand and Molossia?
My favorite is Minerva.
Is Molossia a thing?
Molossia, yeah.
Where is
I like that they have a convention every year now.
Yeah.
The different micronations.
But Minerva's my favorite because they actually had armed combat against a nation. They took over an island in the Pacific Ocean, and some billionaire was funding it. They actually minted their own coins and made their own flag and everything because he's a billionaire and he could do that. But then the problem was they sent letters declaring their independence to all the Pacific Island nations, and the nation of Tonga checked their map and went, "Oh, this is technically within our maritime boundaries." And so they actually sent a small Tongan marine force to take control of the island. And then later, 5 years later or so, the same billionaire decided to try again. And it was literally a case of they snuck onto the island when no one was looking and tried to do it again and hope that they wouldn't notice. So the Tonga had to send its military again and drive them off the island.
Didn't Sealand actually have some sort of like
they had the
semi-armed? They had a thing with the British.
Yeah, they are technically outside the British maritime border, so Britain can't do jack about it.
No, but I think the British actually did there actually was like some sort of operation on Sealand.
Huh.
Tyler is actually, and he likes to throw this in everyone's face occasionally. He's a quote-unquote lord of Sealand, and he took the document that they sent him, and he hung it up in his room. So he always says that he's an official lord. It's always funny.
How many peasants does he have?
One himself.
Lame.
Ha! Burned. What a zinger. And then the last one, and this is going to be the last one, is going to be... Is Tiger Star a furry? You're not a furry, are you? Okay,
no.
Good.
Here's what's so fascinating about that. I get asked that way too many times, and I think the only reason is because that like the mascot for my channel happens to be a cat wearing a helmet. Because like, if like I'm drawing like, I don't know like what the logic is. Like, I guess if I draw an animal in clothes, does that make me one? Not really.
I never saw it as one. I never thought.
Yeah, because then that would mean Walt Disney is one. That would mean that all the Looney Tunes people are furries. Like that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Disney's a furry.
I guess you can never be too careful these days. You gotta make sure.
It's the internet.
Yeah, you gotta be like, are you sure you're not a furry?
Now,
keep in mind, Emperor Tiger Star does not have a Tumblr, nor does he have a DeviantArt, so it doesn't work.
I do have a DeviantArt, actually.
Oh god.
Oh, okay then. Then the mystery is still open. I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, we'll end it on that.
Granted, if an animal if an animal is upright and wearing clothes,
I'm not
like sometimes that can look interesting, like artistically, because that's like what the majority of cartoons are. But like, I don't wear suits. I don't have any interests in any other.
This was just supposed to be a one-off question, Tiger Star.
But then he said he had a DeviantArt, and now
you're not supposed to say you ever say you have a DeviantArt. Never say that.
Now we have to be here all night to get to the bottom.
No, we're ending this. That's all. I'm not discussing this anymore.
Wow.
But anyway,
I mean, I literally say I'm not, and as soon as I mention that, all of a sudden, all doubts are back. And
because you say DeviantArt. Never say DeviantArt. Never say.
Wow.
But anyway, I'm time to thank everybody, and it's time to go. Oh yay! Thank you, Dab, Silent Tremor, Justice McGinnis, Guard 153, William Elena, Sarah Jackson, Brunt Yun, Joseph John, Eric Dennis, reenactor during reenacting stuff. I still love that name. Connor O'Reilly, Sink 98, Marshall Lathers, Benjamin Pitt, and Justice McGinnis again. Yes, I did give you a shout out. And thank you everybody for watching or listening or whatever you call doing the live stream. Next week is going to be Grand Columbia, and that's gonna be fun. We're gonna have to actually think about that one. So anyway, I'm Cody.
I'm insulted.
I'm Tristan from stepbackhistory.com. Subscribe today.
Never check out his DeviantArt ever.